This is Captain Joe Byrd Prison Cemetery, the final resting place of more than 3,000 inmates who died in the Texas prison system. It is the place where prisoners not claimed by their families or can't afford to bury them. It is also the largest and most active prison cemetery in the state of Texas. The graves of death row inmates, which make up about 2% of the cemetery, are indicated by a 99, X, or EX. Inmates make the tombstones and etch the inmate's name and number. The cemetery sits on 22 acres of land outside of Huntsville, Texas, and operated by TDCJ, which stands for Texas Department of Criminal Justice. Captain Joe Byrd Prison Cemetery started in 1850s when the prison system accidentally performed burials on St. Ford Gibbs and George W. Grant's land. Yikes! The two men came to an agreement with the state and donated their land to the State Prison of Texas. When the state of Texas took over the cemetery, they didn't keep track of the burials in the cemetery till 1974. Weird, huh? Makes you wonder. In the cemetery's first 100 years, wooden crosses were used to mark the graves. Over time, the wooden crosses began to rot and were later replaced with white concrete crosses. The cemetery later had a makeover in 1962 by Captain Joe Byrd and his crew. They end up uncovering 900 unidentifiable graves throughout the cleanup. And if you're wondering how the cemetery got its name, it was named after the assistant warden, Captain Joe Byrd, who ran the Huntsville unit, or also known as the Walls Unit, one of Texas' most famous prisons in the state. What makes this prison so famous for? Its history on death row and a few popular serial killers. There is a small memorial that goes on right before trustees, the well-behaved inmates, dig and bury the deceased. A priest comes, sometimes random people off the street, and pay their respect to the unclaimed body or bodies. If you're curious on how much it costs to bury them, $2,000 per person. And on average, 100 inmates from Huntsville unit are buried here each year. So that's $200,000 per year. Captain Joe Byrd Cemetery, located a few blocks from the first prison in Texas, the 1848 Huntsville Penitentiary. The Captain Joe Byrd Cemetery is the final resting place for more than 3,000 inmates who have died while incarcerated within the Texas prison system. The first inmate to be interred here was laid to rest in the 1850s during the first 100 years of the cemetery's use. Inmates were buried among weeds and trees. No record of their death other than their grave marker, named for the assistant warden who was in charge of clearing the cemetery of debris and locating over 900 graves. Captain Joe Byrd Cemetery is the only active cemetery in Texas for inmates whose bodies are unclaimed by family. More than 100 people are buried here each year. So I found a map of the cemetery. Apparently I'm right here where the X is. And there's all these little sections of where the inmates are buried at, along with the serial killer. 2 of them, but I'll list them both so you can see who they are. We start our journey right here at an Indian chief. This is the final resting place of Chief Satanta, a powerful war chief that stood up for what he believed in. He was an influential leader of his people and participant in both battles of the Adobe Walls. Satanta was caught in November 1868 by George A. Custer. He was close to killing General Sherman, later tried by hanging, but was commuted to life imprisonment. Satanta was sent to Texas State Penitentiary in Huntsville to spend the rest of his life there. On the night of October 11, 1878, Chief Satanta jumped out the 3rd-story window in the prison and took his own life. Chief Satanta, if I pronounce his name right, 1878, died by his own hands on October 11th, 1878. His bones were exhumed June 28, 1963, and were moved to Fort Steele, Oklahoma. So he was buried here at one point, and then they exhumed him and brought his body to Fort Steele, Oklahoma. Why is there a whale at this cemetery? You can turn it. The whale's coming up. Kenny McDuff, who was one of many American serial killers and the subject of the book Bad Boy from Rosebud. He was the only person in American history to ever been assigned 2 different death row numbers. This is because of 2 reasons. Number 1, the first reason, the prison was overcrowded with criminals that they let the low-tier inmates go, along with some of the 1st and 2nd degree murderers. The system gave Kennedy Duff parole off a death row. The other reason is that in 1972, the Supreme Court ruled out the death penalty was cruel and unusual, and there was a moratorium halt to all executions in the country at that time. Kennedy McDuff was later caught and sent back to prison after killing again and again, and so on. He was assigned death row again, but this time with a different number. Kennedy was executed on November 17, 1999 in Huntsville, Texas. Oh wait, what the heck is this? There's a porta potty at a cemetery. What the heck? That's pretty interesting. Well, I guess if the inmates are the one doing the work, they need to have a bathroom somewhere. Wait a minute, what is this? David, Brian, his inmate number, his birth date 9/23/1957 all the way to 5/1/2022. QA1. It's a pretty small grave. Maybe it's his urn. Lee Smith was a star of the prison rodeo and was well liked by other inmates. He ended up dying in 1941 by stealing another inmate's commissary's goods. His tombstone reads, "At rest in memory of Rodeo Pal." This is the grave site of Henry Lee Lucas. He was born on August 23, 1936, in a one-room leg cabin inn in Blacksburg, Virginia. He was one of 8 kids. The family didn't make a lot of money as his father was in a wheelchair. He lost his legs. The mother provided for the family as she was a prostitute. By the time Henry was 10 years old, his mother would abuse him time to time and would make him watch unpleasant things. A few days later, Henry got into a fight with one of his stepbrothers outside in the backyard. His stepbrother was holding a knife and stabbed Henry in the eye. His eye was later replaced with an artificial eye. As Henry got a little older, he wasn't able to make friends, so he did strange things to get their attention. His behavior was really off that kids and adults started noticing. In December 1949, his father died of hypothermia after going home drunk and collapsing outside during a blizzard. Henry then dropped out of school, ran away from his hometown, and into a life of crime. Henry started killing animals and doing stuff with them. He began stealing stuff which landed him in prison. When he got out in 1959, he left the state to go live with his sister. On the night of January 11, 1960, Henry went out drinking and came across his mother at the bar. His mother wanted him to come home, but they ended up in an argument. So he left and went back to his sister's. His mother followed Henry to his sister's house and began beating him with a broom handle. Henry then stabbed his mother in the neck and killed her. There's more to this story, but it's just too graphic to even talk about it. He left the scene and he was caught days later by the police. In 1970, after serving 10 years in prison, he was on parole and early release due to the prison overcrowding. A year goes by and he was in trouble again, caught for kidnapping little girls. Henry got a letter in the mail from a family friend while in prison. They wrote to each other, and when he got out of prison, they started dating. Months later, he got a call about a job and told his family friends that he would be back. Henry then left and never came back. Again, Henry found another girl, started threatening her and saying he's going to do this or he's going to do that. And after 3 days, this 18-year-old single mother's friend came over and she managed to escape, call the police, tell them what happened so she could get her baby back from this monster. Henry told the police that she was trying to kill him and the baby. Somehow the police believed Henry. He was then on the move again. At this point, Henry is 42 years old and has spent most of his life behind bars. Henry ran into Otis Toole. They both became best friends and took on jobs together. They were also lovers, by the way. Henry later took Becky Powell, who was Otis's niece, to Texas to help him do some work for Kate Rich. Of course, he didn't bother doing the work. They were just goofing off and decided to go somewhere. Henry said something to Becky that she didn't agree to, and then he ended up killing her. She was 15 years old, by the way, and they were dating. Henry went back to Kate Rich's house and told her that Becky ran off and he tried to stop her. Henry and Kate was going into town to find out about Becky. Again, Henry killed Kate Rich while she was sitting in the passenger seat. Local police heard about Henry and decided to bring him in. Once again, Henry was back in jail. Typical Henry, huh? Now, here's where things start to get interesting. Henry told the police that he committed 350 crimes, and that was just the start. He told them where they were at, drew pictures of what they looked like, and what they were wearing. The police end up making a deal and giving him anything he wanted, from cigarettes, coffee, to a milkshake every day. Henry was treated really good and was loving it. His name was broadcasted all over the world, that people all over the world wanted to do an interview with him. Henry then confessed on killing a total of 600 people worldwide. Henry went on helping the Texas Rangers and local police to solve these crimes. He would review over the files on the missing person, bringing closure to the families. Months go by and one of the cases didn't add up. One of the families said, "No, that's not what happened to our daughter." They called Henry a liar, but the team Henry was working with backed him up, so they end up closing the case. This made the family very angry. As time went on, 214 cases were solved, thanks to Henry. But it doesn't stop there. Henry was interviewed by a mystery man in one of the cases that he had nothing to do with. This then broke the silence. Detectives really got to thinking, how could one man go from here to there in that short amount of time? The evidence he provided didn't match what he asked for. The tables then turned on Henry. His luck finally ran out. The detectives looked into Henry's files and found out that he later cashed a parole check at the same time of the murder. Detectives then looked into this, and Henry was then sentenced to death row and scheduled to die on June 30th, 1998. There were people trying to save him from getting the death sentence because the victim said, if he didn't kill my mom or whoever, then why should he be executed? Texas Governor George W. Bush told the world that Henry would spend life in prison till he died. On March 12, 2001, Henry died of a massive heart attack. This famous serial killer died a serial liar. So it goes to show he lied to the police so he wouldn't be locked up forever. He wanted as much freedom as he could get. Pretty sad, to be honest. This is the more newer section. Barbara, Rocky, inmate number 752463. I'm guessing that's got to be his death date, 1/21/22, number 30, NY. Madlock Richard. This guy died 12/17/21. That doesn't look safe at all. Can't even read the name. This section is the new of the newest, if that makes any sense. I don't want to get too close because I don't know how well the dirt is, but let's come up to this guy. Frederick Turner, 004 97442. Date of birth 7/30th 1948, and he died 8/6/2022. I don't want to go marching through all that dirt just because it's brand new and there's no telling how soft the ground is, and I'd hate to fall through one of those holes that have already been buried. If you made it to the end of the video, thank you for watching. If you like my content, remember to subscribe to my channel. If you don't know who I am, I'm Deadly Nut. I go to abandoned places, historical places, cemeteries, tell stories about the people who are buried here, and so on. If you want to get in contact with me and you want to check out my socials, they'll be in the video description down below. As always, I'll see you in my next video.